he said that when you look at the English language, the word priority in its original etymology, when it was formed, was always just one thing. Super important. Why is that important? We went on the Zoom call, they mentioned the project, and when they were talking commercial terms, they said, well, here's our proposal, the amount. And when they said it to me, I was floored. To cut the story short, I decided to remove one show. I wrote to the network. I said, I know we have a new contract for this whole thing, and I was transparent. I said, my kids spoke to me, and they're wanting me to spend time with them, and this is important to me.
Yeah.
People who have handled money well have a good relationship with it because they understand what it really is supposed to do in their life. For me, if I was to overshare, my philosophy with money is I don't own any of it. I'm just a steward, right? So for a season while I'm alive, I'll do the best I can with it because I don't own any of it, right?
Edric, I'm really happy that you're here. I remember the last time we had this conversation was during your ANC on the Money Days, and we were on the opposite roles, reverse roles, right? You were interviewing me on money management. So now I get the chance to learn from you. So tell me about your days at ANC on the Money. For sure, you interviewed a lot of experts on money management, and you yourself, you're an advocate for that. What are some of the money management tips that you can share with our leaders and individuals who listen to this podcast?
There's so many money management tips. I can maybe start broad and then go specific, right?
Yeah.
I think you need to have a money philosophy first. That's super important. I think many people, and that's what I learned as well from so many brilliant people, including yourself, Shah. And it's so good to see your journey also. I know we were catching up before we started in going live. So that would be one broad tip is when you approach money, many of us, we think about it. We try to make as much as we can and try to spend it wisely. But we don't really think about what is it really for? What is my relationship with money? Diba? Apart from the transactions I need to do with it. So if you want to handle money better or manage it better, I would start broad and say, in Filipino, para sa ano ba itong pera? Diba? What is it for? Some people might say money is the main measure of success. Some people can say that, right? The more money I have, the more successful I am. But until you articulate that for yourself and you're honest with yourself, you will have challenges with money because you will use it functionally, but until it's very clear to you. And that's what I observed. People who have handled money well have a good relationship with it because they understand what it really is supposed to do in their life. So that would be the first tip, right?
Yeah.
Have a philosophy. For me, if I was to overshare, my philosophy with money is I don't own any of it. I'm just a steward, right? So for a season while I'm alive, I'll do the best I can with it because I don't own any of it, right? I'm also a person of faith, so I'm a Christian, and I like to think that all of the money is allowed to be stewarded by God. So my question is, how would God want me to spend the money? That's me. And until I came to that point, I had a lot of problems dealing with trying to get as much as I can, getting frustrated, right? So that would be one broad. A number of very practical and more specific tips that I've learned from so many brilliant people, as you mentioned, on the show and even after that season, right? Is even as you have a philosophy or what it is for, you need to then be clear on the boundaries of money. So what does that look like? Budgets are super basic, right? A very practical way. So from the 100% that you make, the question you want to ask is, do you even know all of that? Are you able to track all of that? Because in this hustle gig economy, and that mga income streams, right? So pull all of that together. And then as you pull it all together, you want to have an honest look at where is it all going? And that can be complicated or simple depending on what you're really doing with your money, right? And you can use technology, apps, and various ways to track. I've learned that if you want a real baseline, depending on your status, if you're working for a job, it's kind of easier. But if you're a gig person or an entrepreneur, it can fluctuate. So take about a good 3 months so you can see what is a real baseline of where the money goes and then average that out. So when you see the reality of what you're making and what you're spending, that becomes a baseline for you. And then you can ask the next practical question of, is this okay or not okay, right? Am I spending too much Or am I putting the money in the right places, depending on where it is? I would segregate also those expenses, right? Part of what I've learned. So depending on your philosophy or how you frame it, then you can help segment where the spending goes, and you can say where you want it to go. So for example, you can say things like my main separation of the expenses is needs and wants. It's very basic, right? You can go as simple as that. Or you can say, well, there are altruistic purposes. Like for me, because my philosophy is I don't own money. Part of what I want to do is give back the money to people who need money. People are desperate, right? There's a lot of poverty in our country, right? Or people who can use it better than me, right? Foundations, charities, and do a lot of things that I can't do myself. So that's up to you. You want to segment it based on what is important and what is related to your philosophy. And then when you do that, and you're now able to set it up, needs, wants, or other nuances behind that, what is then important is the tracking and the review of that, right? So I'm in business, right? Part of what I like to do is have periodic reviews to see that the goals and the structures in place and systems are working, right? What does not get measured does not materialize. So unless you measure and track to see that this is how you want to spend your money, for example, you can have percentages, right? This percent for my needs, this percent for my wants, this percent for my giving. You won't go very far. What has helped me as a general starting point is I like to follow a 50, 20, 20, 10. That's my money structure. So 50% is needs. If I don't have this, I will die, right? So I need to have a roof over my family's heads. We need to have food on the table, pay for the basic utilities, right? That's all needs. Medicine, clothing, right? And then everything else becomes wants. So 20% is then wants. So I want to travel. I want to buy these things. I want to give these things to my kids. So 20% wants. I want to eat out, right? The other 20% would then be future goals and investing and setting money aside. And then 10% would be giving. So I like to say that's base, 50, 20, 20, 10. I've evolved that for me, right? Depending on the season. I think for now, one of my biggest learnings. So I've talked broadly about the philosophy. I've talked about specifics when it comes to making sure you understand what you want to do with it, tracking your income and then your expenses, right? My last tip, because I can go on and on and on, Sha, I want to make sure I honor your time. Just in this opening question of yours, money management tip is you really want to come to a point where after you have a philosophy, after you have a structure in place to help you see what comes in, what goes out, and then structure that so that you can measure it. You really want to ask, how can I give more? Because that is the most irrational, but most transformative principle I have experienced and seen in the people that I respect. Because rationally, you would think you need to gain, invest, grow, get high returns, and there you'll get more money.
Yes.
But it's counterintuitive, and it's something you have to experience for yourself. I have so many stories to share about that. And so because of all those stories and the reality, even as I'm sitting in front of you right now, Shah, it is strange, but it is a truth that I have experienced and I've seen again. The more you focus on what can I give, the more you will find so much more gain. And I'm going to stretch that even beyond money. I know you love talking about happiness.
Yes.
The more happiness and joy you have in being able to just give, because let's make it practical. When you give to somebody that needs it badly and they can never repay you, just seeing the look in their eyes, and then when they say salamat po or thank you, you cannot put a price tag on that, right? So those are part of the gains that you get when you focus on giving versus when you're trying to fight over, and I've seen this even in businesses, people fighting over shares being sold and bought out. I see this in families over possessions and inheritance. It destroys relationships. It destroys people. I've seen people die literally because of the stress and pain of what more can I get? How much more can I give? Or what am I entitled to? So that's a very long answer because it was a very loaded question, Sha. But those are a couple of management principles or money management principles I've learned. And I can go on, but I want to stop first and give you time to maybe ask questions if there's anything more on that topic.
I love how practical and deep your sharing was when it comes to your tips on money management. You went macro and then you went micro. I attended the Wealth Summit of Brother Mo Sanchez a couple of years ago, and you gave a talk there, and you said something that was counterintuitive. on enough.
Mm.
So can you share with us what you mean by enough? Because, we hear a lot about hustle culture. You have to make more money, earn more, have more streams of income, etc. So can you share with us your perspective
Sure.
there?
So since that time, I think it's slightly changed, and I'll explain. Right back then, I was learning. I was in the middle of learning from so many brilliant people at that time. I think I was still on the show when Bo invited me, and he's just a great guy. I what I was learning is what's called the financial finish line, FFL, where basically, unless we're able to say how much is enough, then there will never be enough. And that's part of what I was sharing earlier, right? When you keep grabbing and wanting so much more, and there doesn't seem to be a finish line to it, then you will really find yourself miserable. Like, when will it ever be enough? And you're hustling so hard, you're getting sick, you're losing relationships, because some people, that's the truth. They whatever it takes, I want to keep hustling hard, right? So hustling in itself is not wrong, but when it's at the expense of the things that are supposed to be more important, then it becomes wrong. So you want to be able to ask yourself, what is that financial finish line? And there's a practical way to compute that. Now with ChatGPT, you can get what is the average spend of a family of, let's say you have 2 kids with 2 kids in the Philippines. And you can even make it more specific, right? Because you can do these now in ChatGPT. And when you see that average amount that is needed to be able to get the goals done, that becomes a finish line. So if you make more, what do you do with that? That's where I was sharing earlier. Then you can have this spread to give. Now, let's be realistic. In the Philippines, we're a developing country. So what is enough can be very subjective.
Right.
Even with ChatGPT, some people might say, I still want more. So the principle really is, what is it for you? And do you have that in place? Because if you do not have that in place, once again, nothing will ever be enough. And you will find yourself chasing and striving and pushing and hustling, and you wake up feeling empty, like, ano bang nangyari? What's happened? What's happening in my life? And so it's good to have that. You might not be there yet for many people, but if it's clear in your mind, then you know what you're working towards. And once you cross that threshold, I want to challenge you, right? Whoever's listening to this, I want to challenge you to think 2 things. Not, I'm going to wait till I hit my financial finish line to start giving. That's not the message here. As I mentioned, even for me, there's already a 10% minimum that you're looking to give, right? My message to you is, set that up so that as you hustle and try to find different ways to earn, that becomes the cap. Once you hit this point, everything above that can just add to your giving fund. Because as I said earlier, I'm going to go back to that. That is the most transformative part. If you think about it, let's be very honest. Every single person here, even the most successful people you will guess, they will all have one moment where someone gave something to them, whether it's time, wisdom, insight, a lucky break, or a good break for their business or whatever, or some people money, right? And those are moments we will never forget because they shape us. I can think of so many different moments in people who have done that for me. And if everybody shifted to just getting, then there will be no more of those moments. Nobody will want to pour into other people's lives and give and bless and impact them, right? So that's why I talked about enough back then. It was financial finish line. I said it's changed a little bit now.
Yes.
Because when I think about money management, right, and how we handle it, I don't think the focal point should really be enough. It should be the right mindset now should be, how can I keep gaining so that I can keep giving?
I love that.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I think back then I was stuck on, how can I get to this finish line and then I'm good, right? I just keep giving. But why not keep gaining, right? For those that have the opportunity, and I've met, as I mentioned, it changed because I started to meet extremely successful, even business people around the world who have money they will never be able to spend in their lifetime. And, some critics can say, why even get to that point? It seems very selfish. I thought we're supposed to be giving. But what I was impacted by is their amount and propensity to give and the motivation behind it, right? So even if they've amassed large amounts of wealth, they don't really keep it and they don't flaunt it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because some people will buy all this bling and fancy stuff to show people, look, I have this money. But as we know, you can't really take that with you. And some of them, you'll have to tax when you die. And so all of that to say, I've found that these people who keep gaining because they built businesses and empires that keep growing are able to keep giving and giving and giving and giving. So that's my modification of it. Yes, have a financial finish line, but don't think like hanggang dito na lang ako, which is a Filipino mindset I do not like, right? That's not the message of enough. And I think that could be the misconception unless I add that change now. People might think, all right, so once I'm here, I'm good, I'm set, I'll just chill. No, my suggestion is if you're able to grow and build and keep gaining, keep going. But as I've already honestly put out there, what are you going to do with all that? If it's just for you, what a waste, right?
Right.
Give. Allow other people the opportunity to do things that they couldn't otherwise do because you've been able to do that, right? So that would be my modification now. It's don't just think enough. Have a good financial finish line, but keep thinking, how much more can I gain so that I can give and be a blessing?
I love that you are rooted when it comes to money, rooted in I because I did a lot of research about you, and you are rooted in faith, right? And what I see also is that when you keep giving, you attract your tribe. You attract people who are givers like you as well. Can you share with us a story, a defining moment in your life wherein you gave and then it hurt because maybe I should keep this money, but you gave it anyway, and then God rewarded you for it?
Oh, I have so many. On top of my mind, one of my favorite stories is with my wife, right? So my wife is an author, and her book that went out in the Christian publishing company that released it was telling her that after a book fair, I think it was the Manila International Book Fair, one of those big book fairs, for their booth, her book sold out tremendously well. It was the best-selling book of that whole event. And even to that season, it did so well. And for book authors, the royalties come once a year, right? At least for this publishing company. So a year later, my wife gets a call and says, "Ma'am, your check is ready." And as they were telling her check was ready, of course, in my mind, I was racing through the numbers, best-selling book, did very well. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great inflow, right? And since in our home, our relationship with money is I handle all of our finances, the inflows and how it all comes together, and then I dispense, right? So I was excited to collect this. My wife was telling me, hey, they called, we're about to get the check. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, thank you, God. Money's coming in, perfect timing. And then my wife looked at me and she goes, I just feel like since this is my first check for my book, I feel like God wants me to give it back because, and she was quoting a Bible verse that said, we give our first fruits to the Lord, like the first income you make from a harvest back in the agricultural day. In this case, it was kind of her first harvest as an author, right? And when she was saying it to me, in my mind, I was thinking, are you kidding me? Like, is this a joke, right? Sayang, I was saying, God, is this really you? And I didn't say this to her. I looked at my wife in the eyes, but I was thinking all that. And I said, I could say what I'm thinking right now, but I don't think I will do this. So instead, I calmed myself down and I realized, you know what? Really, this is her work, right? And if she feels like God is leading her to do this, then I'm going to be a supportive husband. So I said, okay, honey, if this is what you want to do, if this is what you think God wants you to do, go for it. So she did. And the crazy thing that happened was a few days later, we got a call from our team and they said, hey, there's this company that wants to do a collaboration with you guys. Will you go on a Zoom call with them? We went on the Zoom call. They mentioned the project. And when they were talking commercial terms, they said, well, here's our proposal, the amount. And when they said it to me, I was floored. It was 25 times the amount my wife had given away.
Wow.
And I'm not sharing that because people will think, okay, if I give, I get 25 times more, right? That's not the principle here.
Yeah.
But you asked me for a powerful moment where it's counterintuitive, right? So I didn't expect that. My wife wasn't expecting that. It was the highest project she ever got in all of her, all of her collabs as an influencer and a KOL. And so I connected those dots because I have more of those connecting of the dots stories where it is in a moment where you are put almost like almost like a test. Like, are you going to hold on to this or are you going to let it go? Because if you let it go, as I gave in my visual, I've got so much more I can give you. Now, it doesn't always have to be in money, as I mentioned. It could be in
Yes.
other things, but I have so many other stories. But that would be one of them also. Like I said, I have so many more stories, but that would be one highlight that I
Yeah.
want to leave with you right now.
And that's such a powerful story. Imagine you're so excited for that, and you honored your wife's decision to what to do with that money. So thank you for sharing that,
You're
Edric.
welcome.
You have 6 kids, 6 adorable kids. How does leadership look in your household?
Um, so early on, one of the things we learned in marriage and parenting, right, when it comes to leadership, is that has to be defined. What does leadership look like in the
Yes.
home? Who will do what roles, right?
Mhm.
Because I think if we're to answer it philosophically, everyone has a part to play in the home. Even Lola and Lola, if you're living with your parents, if you have house help, even they have a role to play, right? Everyone has a role to play. So in a sense, everyone's leading in some fashion, right?
Yeah.
But what is important is those roles have to be clear.
Mm.
What we realize is in marriage, if the roles are not talked about and clarified, then all of that ambiguity can create and has created problems for many people we've journeyed. So in the home, it's the same way. Who will ultimately be accountable for what happens in the family? Will it be my wife? Will it be me? Will it be the kids? So someone has to be CEO, right?
Yeah.
And then the CFO handles all the money, right? So budgeting, the things we talked about, is it going to the needs, wants, the giving, all of that? Someone's got to track all that. And it's critical even in a marriage, right? And then the CIO, Chief Investment Officer, then thinks about where's the money going to go so that it will grow. So on the one hand, you have someone tracking everything. On the other, you have looking forward. Is it helping us get the college fund for the kids? Fund for new business. So all of that is the CIO. And then the COO is day-to-day management of
Yes.
home affairs, right? So for us in our family, my wife and I early on, it was not that clearly articulated in the C level, but effectively those roles were clarified. Who's ultimately accountable? So in our home, we decided it would be me. And you know, you must also have a philosophy. In the same way you have a philosophy with money, you need to have a philosophy in leadership and in the home. When I say philosophy, it is, what is your guide? Who will tell you what it looks like, right? Or what will tell you? So different families have different sources. For us, again, because we're people of faith, we look to the Bible, right? And so even that role, as I've defined it, of who's ultimately accountable is from the Bible, and based on our learning from the Bible, it is supposed to be the man, whether he likes it or not. So I'm the CEO. For my wife, she is the COO,
Yes.
Chief Operations Officer. And I want to say it's the most expensive job in the world. It is the most priceless and maybe underappreciated role. But I'm blessed that that is what she's chosen to do, right? So she doesn't really have any main job. Early in our marriage, we were both working, but at a certain point, we made the decision. She stayed home. So she became the COO, managed the home, took care of me, the kids, house help, etc. And because we homeschooled, there was so much more time and energy that she then put into doing that as well. So COO is my wife. CFO was me, still is me. Sorry, was me. I want to be clear. Was me because between my wife and I, my wife came from a family with quite a bit of money, right? So she didn't really have to worry and think about those things. But me, my family was okay, but maybe because I was the eldest boy, I had to learn how to handle money early, be responsible about it, make money. So I was making money even in high school to college, right? Just to be able to learn to do it. So I naturally became the CFO at the start. At a certain point, I promoted her. I said, honey, because you've handled budgets for the home already as the COO, which I would give her a budget. You've handled this so well. You can be the CFO now. And I will focus on the CIO. Because at that point, we had money to then start saving and investing. Because at the very start, we didn't have a lot of money, right? But at a certain point, it grew. So I said, we need to think about the future. So you focus on the money coming in and what happens. I will focus on the future, CIO. That became our dynamic. So I am currently still the CEO, but also the CIO. My wife wears the CFO and the COO hat in our home. So that's how we've structured the leadership dynamics, if you will. One last tip for the parents who are here. in the home when it comes to leadership, we also need to come to a point where our children feel empowered to make decisions as well. And that's so important. I learned a little bit of this from Bo, actually. He said, you need to wear 3 different hats as you raise your kids, right? And this is where I paraphrase it already and personalize it.
Yeah.
The first is a commander hat. So when they're very young, their leader is clear. It is the parents. It's not a negotiation. It's not a democracy. They do what the parents tell them. They need to understand the healthy relationship of authority figures. So you are the commander. If you say so, you don't have to explain it. They need to just obey you. When they get a little bit older, so that's about 0 to 5 or 6. When they get a little bit older, so 6 to about their teen years, then you become a coach. So you don't just tell them to do it blindly. Then you now have to give them a game plan and say, this is why we're doing these things. This is why it's good for you. And then you coach them along the way. If they mess up, you've got to reel them in. There are some consequences, like a good coach. If they do well, you give them a reward, incentivize them.
Yeah.
So that leadership is also built in them. When they begin to own their actions, they understand why, and they can help realize that there are boundaries. If I do it right, there are rewards. If I do it wrong, there are consequences. Coaching. When they're adults, so this is when they're hitting college or graduating and starting the work world, then you become a consultant to them. So you start asking good questions that will help them to think and own up and stretch themselves, right? So why did you come home late last night? Help me understand. Do you think that was good for you? Do you feel good right now? No, I feel horrible, Dad. Okay, good. So then what are you going to do about it? Well, I think the next few days, I'm going to make sure I adjust my schedule. Great, consultant. So that leadership dynamic where you're empowering them also, right? At the start, they need to understand mom and dad are the leader. When they become a little bit older, they're growing into their own leadership, finding their way as they're coached by dad and mom. And then when they get a little bit older, they're fully owning their decisions, because now it's all the choices you make are literally on you. Dad and mom can feel different things, but really it is you. You're an adult now. You're college, you're going off, you're working. So my role in your life is to be available to you because I love you and I'm going to be a consultant. I wanted to add that leadership dynamic even when it comes to handling the kids, because we found that to be very effective as well. No, so at the home, with the marriage and the dynamic, there's the C levels with the kids.
Yes.
You kind of have to understand that dynamic of, are you a commander, coach, or consultant, right? So that even in their eyes, they're also developing, becoming leaders in their own right.
So thank you for sharing that, Edric. You have 6 kids. How different or the same are they? And if you were to look at your kids and ask yourself, what leadership lesson am I learning from these kids? What would those be?
Sure. So the difference and similarities first, right? I want to say each child is definitely different from the other. Very different. What unites them and what unites us, like in any team or company, are our values. We've identified as a family what our core values are. So that is a similarity, right? So it's like in a company, you have to identify our core values. So we have a set of family core values, like a Mendoza does this, right? So that's very clear to us. And if you ask even my 6-year-old, I have a 6, 11, as of this podcast recording, 6, 11, 15, 17, 19, and 22.
Wow.
So thus the commander, coach, consultant, I'm across all the board, right? We have a little bit of all. So they're all unique, and which is refreshing because they have the same dad and mom. They were all homeschooled, exactly the same environment, you would argue. But their 3 boys are the older ones, and then the 3 girls who are the younger ones. They're all very different. So, which is a good thing. So my job as a good commander, coach, or consultant is to identify those differences, what makes them special, what their strengths are and their weaknesses are, and then help grow the strengths and mitigate the weaknesses. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what leadership lesson am I learning from these kids? I think there's so many. But one of the most important things I have learned from my kids, being a father to them, is the importance of humility. I did not grow up like that. Our generation grew up with parents who are like, whatever they say in Filipino, kung ano sabi nila, gagawin mo lang yan, diba? So you just do what you're told. And I've learned, as I've shared earlier, there's a season where that makes sense. But there's a season where you need to help empower them to be able to think through these things so they own their actions. They become less reckless. So to do that as a father, because that was not the model I grew up with, honestly, I had to learn humility, because when my kids will start asking me as the coaching stage, Dad, why am I doing this? A part of me wants to say, basta, like just do it.
Yes.
But that will strain the relationship. It will not allow them to create convictions because there's no clarity, and that's not good parenting. So
Right.
as a good leader in the home, to parent them well, I've learned humility, which is, you know what? Even if they're asking me these questions and it might be inconvenient, or I just want them to just do it, at that stage, I need to have the patience and the openness to say, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm actually wrong here. So let's explain it so you understand it. So that's one big lesson for me, really, is humility. Another big word, especially for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and I'm sure you're a data person, right? If my data is correct, what I've learned from this young generation is the power of authenticity. So it's similar to humility, right? Where they need to see that Dad is not perfect, right? And I need to be able to tell them that hey, kids, Dad is not perfect.
Yes.
But it's not an excuse. That's so important. With authenticity is not the excuse to just be imperfect, right? My son, in a very powerful moment we had last year, where he was very offended by what I did. And he said something that was this painful. He said, Dad, all the things that I do not want to be in a father someday, I saw in you.
Oh my God.
So
So
painful, so painful. You know what?
Yes.
I was holding it together. I wanted to break down in front of him, but I held it together and I wanted to react and say, how dare you? Hindi mo ba alam, diba? I'm your father, all the things I'm doing for you. How can you say that to me? But instead, humility, right? I said, okay, let me try and understand where he's coming from. I said, I'm sorry, son, that you feel that way. I'm sorry for what I've done that has caused you to feel this way. I want to know what I did. So if you can tell me, because honestly, I'm shocked that this is what you're saying to me. So he calmed down because he was worked up. He was crying. He's this big, strong son of mine. And you don't see, he's not emotional like that. So he's crying. He said, okay, calm down. He said, Dad, this is the reason why. And then the authenticity part, right, of this whole piece is when I said, thanks for telling me, because I'm not a perfect dad. I know I have blind spots and I need you to be able to tell me these things. So this is the important part. I said to him, thank you for telling me. I will change. Right? I will be more calm in my response to you when I see these things, instead of just saying, why didn't you do that? Right? Which offended him, apparently. And a number of those things offended him deeply. That's why he said all the things I've seen. And then he calmed down. He said, Dad, I'm sorry. I exaggerated what I said. It's not all true, but because I was offended, I said those. And so we were able to hug and repair that. And then later on, because I have the privilege of speaking in so many different platforms, he joined me in one of these parenting talks and he shared about that moment. And he, in front of everybody, he said, you know what we young people are looking for? We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progress. That you're willing to change and that you are changing. So that's for me what authenticity looks like, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm learning also from my kids is they're not looking for a perfect father, although I want to be, right? They want to see me instead make progress. Where I mess up, I confess up. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And then they need to see. So I'll ask him, I'll say, hey, have I improved? That thing you called out, it's like, yeah, Dad, you're doing great.
Oh, wow.
So that's super important, right? So I have so many more, but I think those would be top. Humility and authenticity.
Oh, wow.
Super important.
Whew. How did you manage to do that? I mean, for sure, there's the ego part for men, right? For men and women. So where was your ego at that time, and how did you manage to tame your ego?
Oh, I was very honest, right? My ego's up to here. In my brain and in my heart, I wanted to say all of those things like, how dare you? How could you say that? You don't. And he really has no idea all of the stress and pressure that we as fathers have to undertake. It's not like we tell our kids every day, right? So we hustle, we push so hard. In my mind, I'm thinking, really, in Filipino, if I could say it, bastos ka, right? How dare you? Like, how could you say these things? So the ego was all the way up, to be very honest with you. I'm not going to pretend, right? But that's why it became such a powerful lesson, is I could have let that out. And if I did, I guarantee you, it would have been a very different outcome. I would have crushed his spirits. I would have not allowed for him to realize that I could talk to Dad about these things. I can be vulnerable to Dad about these things because it matters to him, right?
Yeah.
And so I thank God that when I look back, that was not the response. So how did I do that?
Yes.
because I'm a Christian, as I was listening to him and I wanted to say that, I did what should be instinctive to me, and I was able to at that time, was I prayed. I said, God, this is what I want to say. Honestly, these are all the things I want to say right now. So I know that if I do, I can destroy him. So will you help me? Because my instinct, its impulse is to say all these things. And that's why I said earlier I had to calm down. So I calmed down. I took a breather as I was praying. And as I took a breather, then I said, I'm so sorry, son, right? That's how I was able to do it. Now, is it always like that for me? Of course not. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
But you asked me for significant moments, and that was one. There are moments where I'm not like that. I'm having a rough day, and I don't do that, right? And it leaks out. And then I have to apologize afterwards because I said something bad. But that's generally how I deal with it. I'm aware of what I'm experiencing and feeling in the moment. And then I bring it quickly to prayer and say, God, will you help me? Because this is what I'm wanting to do. And I want to say many times I'm able to calm down and respond properly, but there are sometimes that it leaks out and I don't act that way. So, but that's what I try to do, is I take a breather, I pray, and then I come back in.
I like that. And also like that you have the grace as well to be patient with yourself, right? With your progress. Because,
Yes.
well, of course, it's cliche, but we're all works in progress.
That's so true.
Yes.
That's so true.
Oh my God, Edric, I'm really learning a lot from you at this point. Your academic background is very impressive. So you studied in Ateneo, HEC Paris, and Harvard. You also lead Global Homeschool. And now you lead the Maxwell Leadership Philippines. And you're also putting up a college, a Christian college. And you have 6 kids. You're a very present husband as well to Joy. I follow Joy's IG. So how do you manage your time? I mean, how do you manage your energy? What does your daily schedule look like?
Right. That's a super good question. I don't know. No, that's the truthful answer. But I've built systems in place, right? So how do I manage the time and energy so that I'm able to do these things, right? That you've mentioned. A couple of things have helped me along my journey in making sure I manage the time. First is this whole balance perspective, work-life balance. What I've learned is it really is a myth in the way that it's phrased, right? Because there's no such thing as balance. It's all about focus. So one very recent material that has helped me in terms of managing time and energy and focus is a book by George McKeown. In his book, Essentialism. There you go. Thank you very much. Essentialism. Just to help me reframe things, because I was going through a lot of different challenges last year as I was doing those, plus others that you didn't read out. And I came to a point where I asked, how do I know if I'm doing the right things? How do I know if I'm putting my time and energy behind what really is important and matters? Because there's so many things we can do, right?
Right.
Especially in this age of fluidity, where you can work and do so many things with technology rather than the days where you had to clock in and show up. So there's so much we can do. So in a nutshell, what that book and that author reminded me of or taught me was super good is he said that when you look at the English language, the word priority in its original etymology, when it was formed, was always just one thing. Super important. Why is that important? When you see it that way, you realize that after, I think if I got the data right, after the wars, when things started to get peaceful, so World War II, the world is stabilizing, economies were first surfacing, the middle class starts to boom, suddenly the English word changed, where it's no longer priority, it's now priorities. And when the world had priorities, that's when people started getting really stressed, because it's like there's so many things that are now important. So when George McKeown framed it that way, what I liked is, and the reason the book's called Essentialism, he said we need to go back and ask a very simple and practical question. If we're going to manage time and energy well and answer that question that I was asking, right, of the many important things, what do I focus on, which is what I was sharing. He talks about how we need to ask, what is that priority?
Just one
for you.
Okay.
Because there has to be something. And it's an important point, right? Some people are like, for me, there has to be several. Fine, that's you. But unless you come to a point where you crystallize it into one most important thing, then you will continue struggling and stressing because you're like, I have to do this. I have to do this because this is a priority. This is a priority. When in the original English etymology, there's only one thing. So immediately when I learned that, I have this glass panel in my office at home, beautiful view, and I use it to write my thoughts. So I immediately started saying, what is the priority for Edric Mendoza? Right? When you're able to identify that one thing, the next practical thing you do, so it's essentialism, right? That is what is essential. So since you know that that is the one priority for you, then you can start saying, what are the many things you're doing? And then you start asking a practical question. Does this help me achieve the priority or not? If it doesn't, don't do it. If it currently exists, find a way to start easing your way out of that and cut it so that you can focus on the priority. Everything we do, personally, professionally, hobbies, right? If they do not allow us to achieve that priority, then the reality is, then it doesn't really need our time and energy because we have limited time and energy, right? So that's one very powerful and practical recent lesson I've had that changed me. I mean, honestly, I came out of that, coaching session with my performance coach, executive coach, really refreshed because I did the exercise. And then as the year turned, I started cutting. I adjusted my schedules. I adjusted my teams, my rhythms, and I focused on that priority. And I made sure that everything I was still doing and I still do up to now are a priority. The reason I'm here and I said yes to be with you is this is a priority. It's part of that priority because my whole thing is to, in a few words, right? Again, I'll speak a little bit religious here. My whole thing is to make the word is disciples of all nations. In other words, to be able to help people get to know who God is and what he can do in their life.
Wow.
So whether that's through conversations on money, on leadership, on education, whatever, that's the end goal, right? You give them practical equipping and tools so that they can then learn and be transformed and they can do the same. So that's why I'm here. I want to be able to give back whatever I can, encourage you, Sha, and encourage the listeners here with what I've learned. So that's why I said yes to this. Otherwise, I wouldn't do these things, right?
Oh.
So that's one very important thing. To manage time and energy, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, what is your priority? And then filter all of your things behind that priority. Another very practical tool that helped me is way back, I used to use this until I learned about George McKeown, is from a book called Leading on Empty by Wayne Cordero. He said, and you can fact check this because this was back then, right? He said 80% of the things we do, we can delegate to others. So first question is, what are those things for you, right? What can you delegate to others? 15% of the things we do, we can train up others to do and maybe even do better. So then you want to ask that next practical question, right? In my life, of the many things I'm doing, what are the things I can train up other people to do and preferably do better? Because that's great. If you're in a team and they can do it better, good for the team, right? So 15%. That leaves 5%. And this is what's the powerful principle. He said, there's 5% of the things that we do that only you can do. So you want to ask that. What are those things for you? And when that's very clear to you, then obviously focus on doing that. That helps you manage the time and energy. And like I said, it's not about balance. It's about focus. You focus on your 5%. You focus on what is essential. That allows you to do so much more with quality rather than quantity. Does that make sense?
Right.
So let's make it even more practical. For Edric Mendoza, right? 5%. Only I can be a husband to my wife, Joy. If I don't do that, let's be honest. This is where affairs and marriages break down. If we're not able to fulfill that role, then it will be found somewhere else. Some people might even find it in a hobby or in a pet or in something else, right? And it will just destroy the marriage. Only I can be a husband to my wife, Joy, so I need to fulfill that role. Only I can be a father to my 6 kids. And the same thought, if I'm to be honest with myself, if I don't fill that role, Sha, someone else will fill in that role and it can lead to disastrous things. So that's why it's important to me, right? I need to be there. I need to be available. In the teams I lead, it can be different, right? So part of what I enjoy doing in this season, Sha, in my leadership, is I look for in the teams that I am leading, whether it's businesses or advocacies or church-related kind of ministries, is who are the leaders here that are these 15% people who I can equip so that they can do things better than me. And when I do that, what does that do for me? Let's make it very practical. In a typical day, if I have good leaders, I can be on a podcast with Nacino right now. I don't have to be grinding it out, talking to these different people because I've got good leaders in place. Or I could spend more time traveling with my family, having quality moments with my wife, because no one else can be a father to my kids. No one else can be a wife to my wife, Joy, right? And no one else can be a husband to my wife, Joy. So that would be the other super practical and, for me, transformative principle when it comes to managing time and energy and looking at all these different things that we are doing, right? Is the 5% principle of Wayne Cordero. So there's many more, but those are the top two that I've loved and that have really, really helped me.
I love that you're so clear about your guiding principles. On money, you have a guiding principle. On how you manage your energy and time, you have a guiding principle. And how it makes it easier for you to make decisions, right? So I'm thinking about what you said a while ago, and I thought about my daily schedule, and I asked myself, okay, why do I feel tired, so tired at the end of the day sometimes?
Good.
Where do I allocate my time? And then there's a guilt part of for me, we're in scrolling on social media. Guilty 1 hour. That's not contributing to the priority. So thank you, Edric.
Super good.
Tell me more about the Maxwell Leadership Philippines. What do you do and who is it for?
Yeah. So this is I would say, one of the latest ventures that have come my way, and I use the same principle. Is this my 5%, right? Is this part of what is a priority for me? It took about 2 years. The Maxwell Group, through friends of friends, contacts to work and various things, were looking for a partner in the Philippines. John Maxwell has been a household name for decades, right? He's about 78 years old right now. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, he's getting older. So in the 2 decades that have ensued, times have changed drastically, as you would know, right? Who are the leadership gurus today? There's so many. There's so many principles. There's so many platforms, so many free stuff. You can go on TikTok and everyone can claim to give something. I mean, let's be honest, right? And with ChatGPT can be your leadership guru now. I mean, frankly, you can get all these things also. So I was asking the honest question of, is there still a need for principles from John Maxwell and his world in the Philippines? And then I asked myself, is there still bandwidth for me to do this, given that I've got so much going on also? I said 5% and the essentialism principle. So what ultimately sealed the deal for me, which is why I said yes to embracing this and bringing Maxwell in as the partner in the Philippines, was when I started asking people, corporate folks, HR successful persons, and I said, have you heard of John Maxwell? What do you think? And the net of it is, it's almost like a timeless classic because it's been decades. It's not as fresh and exciting necessarily, except if you're hearing it for the first time, which is part of what we're trying to do, to be very honest and direct. But because it's a timeless classic, then there are many principles that can still be used like a timeless classic, in the nature of a timeless classic. So I was like, okay, with a good marketing push and a refresh for younger people who might not have heard the name, I think we can still impact the Philippines and use these leadership principles because they're transformative. I've been impacted by his principles. There's so many that I can think about. The other thing that finally sealed it for me personally is when I looked at my own journey and I said, will this fit the priority? Will this fit my 5%? And the way that I framed it is, I look back at the privilege I've had in building things, and it has been of many things, but primarily in the learning space, right? So there was a season where I've had the privilege of building something fairly disruptive in the K-12 space through homeschooling, home-based learning, which during the pandemic exploded even into online learning and various permutations of that, even hybrid learning solutions. So I think we've been able to do that, and we've built a national organization in the Philippines. We've worked with the local government. And so I feel like that is a good system with good leaders. And so my goal is to just continue to sustain and guide the teams there. And then I moved into the higher education space, as you were saying in my
Yes.
credentials earlier, right? Is how can we then impact and provide learning solutions for this next generation of people who are in the higher education space? And so just this week, as of this recording, we finally launched it. So it's been our first week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I received that. I received it because it's been 3 years of really blood, sweat, and tears. And the team were teary-eyed, many of them, because it's been a challenging journey to be able to launch something disruptive in the higher education space. So because I'd like to think we have good leaders in place, not yet perfect, right? But it's moving, and that's there, and it's had a 3-year runway. So finding the right people who have the right skill sets, the right passion, capabilities. Since that was moving already, the next question I asked is: we've hit K through 12, we've hit higher education. And at some point, we even did a fun stint of personal finance education, right? In TV and becoming an RFP. So that also rounds out the whole learning experience, because everybody deals with money. Not everybody right now is in K through 12. Not everybody right now is in college, but everybody handles money. Whatever the age, you got to have to handle money. So great to be in that platform. The Maxwell world fit that whole formula because we can now hit adults who are not necessarily in college, who are not necessarily in K through 12.
Yeah.
And guess what? As I've said earlier, everybody needs to learn how to lead better.
Yes.
Right. So that became the missing piece. It's like if this was a symphony and you're writing a beautiful symphony to complete the whole symphony, that's why it made sense for me. There's something in K through 12. There's something for higher education, and there's now something for adults and everybody. So in my desire to make a difference, to change this world by, as I said earlier, right, making disciples of all nations who will change the world, the leadership piece of Maxwell personally became a fit. So I said, let's do this. So those two reasons, right? There's still opportunities, the timeless classic. So after the 2 years, we said yes. And so what I wanted to do to make sure that it made sense for me is to find an amazing leader who could help drive it fully as the CEO, and I would come alongside that leader, right? Because I still have the college, as I mentioned earlier, and another venture which we can talk about at some point. But so when I found that leader, he was the guy I wanted to be on this podcast with me, right? He's a corporate guy. He's had an amazing run. He's been in J&J. He's been in Coca-Cola. He's been in Globe. And then recently, he headed up all of Samsung's mobile business. He turned it around in the region. And so I don't know if you know, but in the Asia-Pacific region, Philippines is now number 1.
Wow.
Largely because of his leadership, right? So he was hitting a season where, we were talking off camera about people who were looking for greater value in the workplace. And as a corporate guy all his life, he said he wanted to give more value to people, and he didn't know if corporate would still be it. And he wanted to gain more value. So he decided to take a chance on entrepreneurship, and he loved the value and the values that Maxwell represents. So to cut the story short, he was the final piece for me, right? When I talked to this friend and I said, hey, where are you at? And he said, I'm looking for something new. And I said, well, would you consider this opportunity? And he said, this is fantastic. So he's now the CEO of Maxwell Leadership Philippines. And that's how it all started, right? So is there a market for Maxwell's content and his principles? Timeless classic. Does Edric have a season to fit this in? Does it make sense for his 5%? And the essentialism, it fits the leader, it fits the spectrum of learning that I've been called to, or I feel like I've really been kind of raised up to help build. And then is there a key leader I can support, who can drive it, who can put his whole heart behind it? He's the guy. His name is Blue Avellino. If you guys are listening, look him up. Look up the programs. But so that's how it all started, Sha. And it's a few months old as of this recording. And one of the main things that it is focused on right now is really offering what's called a licensing program so that you can become a licensed coach, trainer, or speaker under the Maxwell brand, right? So there's a whole platform and system that you can learn to do that. And then you get certified at the end of that. And that's what Blue's driving right now, is raising up an army, if you will, of licensed coaches, speakers, trainers, so that in the Philippines, we have now what's called the Philippine Tribe. So this whole tribe of leaders who have been equipped can now mobilize across the Philippines and coach, speak, train in their various spaces.
Wow.
The,
Now,
the vision, sorry. And the whole
Yeah.
vision and the mindset that Blue crafted was we want to transform the Philippines one leader at a time.
I love
Right.
that.
Create a leadership revolution. So I'm like,
We
all
really
right,
need that.
that's super good. Let's go. Let's do it. So it's a few months old. We just came from a meeting. I said earlier, we just came from a meeting earlier, meeting the tribe council now. So there's a leader amongst these leaders who have been willing to put in their time and say, let's structure this better and grow the tribe in the Philippines so that as they get certified, there's a support mechanism and they can find ways to monetize their passions, build their businesses, but get good solid mentoring with people who are like-minded. So that's the whole shebang.
Whew. So I'm also seeing, as we talk, I'm also thinking what is my 5% that only I can do, that I can focus on. I'm learning a lot from this conversation. Was there a moment when your purpose was tested and you had to choose alignment over ambition?
Yes, for sure. And I think when you were mentioning that, even to me earlier, right, you were saying that would be one of the questions you asked. There have been a number of moments where I think the words you use would be alignment over ambition. I love that phrasing.
Yeah.
Alignment, especially in light of what I mentioned, is it my 5%? Is it essential? When I was in TV during the ANC days, and you were one of our amazing guests, there was a point where I had to decide, do I carry on this trajectory and let go of my other ventures and go all in the TV world? I had 3 shows already at that time. So I was doing On the Money, which is where you were my guest.
Yes.
I was doing mornings at ANC, and I was doing Philippine Realty TV with the guys who I'm so excited to see how that took a different pivot. And it's John Aguilar and the crew that's now doing The Final Pitch. You may have met or heard of John. So they're it's like our version of Shark Tank, right? Final Pitch, and they've gotten many accolades. So John, if you're hearing this, shout out to you, buddy. So I was doing a stint with them, 3 shows, even while I was running our businesses in the homeschooling space and some of the advocacies there. And the juncture for me was when I was doing that, and my kids at one point had talked to my wife, and my wife said to me, honey, I came home. I was sleeping at about 7 p.m. to wake up at 3:30. So I could leave by like 4-ish to get to the studio and get ready for the 5:30. It's a mornings at ANC, right? And so it was a grind. And then after the show in the morning, I would go off to my teams and meet with them. And then where it was taping day for On the Money, I would then do that recording separately. So it was that kind of grind. So when my wife said, honey, the kids want to talk to you, that's code for saying something's going on, right? So I said, okay, before I retired early that night, if I recall correctly, I gathered the kids. They were much younger then. My eldest was only, I think, 14 or 15, right? Back then. And so I said, all right, guys, United Nations meeting. I was not all 6 kids yet. We only had 4 or 5 then. And I gathered them together. I said, hey, so mom said you want to talk to me. I'll cut the story short, right?
Yeah.
When I talked to them, they said, Dad, you're too busy. And my youngest son was saying, no, my eldest son at that time, who was the one 14, 15, he stands up and he's getting emotional. He's trying to fight his tears. He's saying, yeah, Dad, I want to remind you. He's doing this finger, right? There are things that are more important than money, he said. And so, and then he looked at me, he said, I'll pray for you. And then he tried to look away and fight off his tears. And so when your son says that to you, right, I was like, whoa. Okay, that's a good reminder. There are things more important than money. So, cut the story short, Sha, I decided to remove one show. I wrote to the network. I said, I know we have a new contract for this whole thing. And I was transparent. I said, my kids spoke to me and, they're wanting me to spend time with them. And this is important to me.
Yeah.
I think you've known this. I said, I think you've known this about me even before coming to the show. So I'm hoping you'll allow me to gracefully exit from the contract. And they said yes. So I let go of that one first show. And when I let go of that first show, Sha, I got spending more time with the kids, advancing those advocacies and the businesses in the learning space. I got nominated for the TOYM award
Wow.
10 Outstanding Young Men Awards. But as I got nominated, I was so excited. I said, oh, this is my affirmation that I made the right choice, letting go of ambition. I love the show. I love the money. It was amazing. And I was telling my wife, I said, honey, I don't think the kids will ever know the sacrifice I made, because when I gathered the kids and I told them, guess what, kids, daddy is letting go of the show so I can spend more time with you. They're like, oh, great. And even my eldest was like, cool. I'm like, that's it? The money, all of that. So I let go of that ambition for alignment. I wanted to put my time behind my kids. So I thought that nomination was it. Like, oh, hey, this is my affirmation. I made the right choice. I aligned instead of focusing on my ambition. And I was telling my kids about it. My wife, I said, will you guys pray that I get it? Because this would be great if I get the award. I didn't get it. It's just a nomination. So when I got the news that I didn't get it, I was talking to my wife over the dinner table. And I said, babe, that TOIM award, I didn't get it. I know we all prayed. I feel sad. I really was hoping to get it. And then my son, while he was listening, the eldest, he goes, what do you mean you feel sad, Dad? I said, yeah, I asked you guys to pray for that. It's like, Dad, you don't need to feel sad about that, because you are the most outstanding man in my life.
Aww.
So when he said that to me, of course, right, I got emotional, I got teared. I'm like, thank you, son. And I realized that all of those choices, or that choice, even if I thought it did not matter, it really mattered to him and to my kids. They just didn't know how to express it. So I share that because when you ask, have there been moments where there was pressure for me to let go of something, make a difficult decision, where it could have been ambition, but instead I chose alignment? What was that like? And I've shared it with you, and I showed the outcome even. So that led to more decisions to pull away. At some point, I pulled away even from all the money. Not because I didn't love it, because I really did, but the business side of things in the education space was growing. We were expanding to other countries. That's why it's called global.
Yes.
It was moving to other regions. We were growing very much in the Middle East. There's a lot of Filipino families there. And my partners were saying, Edric, you need to focus. So that became another critical juncture where I said, okay, I have to remove even the remaining TV show that I had. And I went all into that. And it was very timely, because this was about 2017, 2018. A year after, we asked a new leader, the one who was heading up our Middle East operation, to come in. He's a foreign gentleman, a South African guy who was much younger, had a lot more energy. And we said, okay, why don't you come in and lead this whole thing so that for Edric, I can do other things. And as we were able to get that set up in place, the pandemic hit. And 1.6 billion students all over the world had to learn online. They had to, because we were all locked down. The world was locked down, as we know, right? Even us as adults, we had to learn to work online.
Right.
So we were at the right place at the right time, So even that decision, when I made it, was painful. I said, oh, I loved On the Money. I love working with Salve, with the crew. I loved meeting amazing guests. And I actually grieved it, honestly. I grieved. But I had to choose, right? Ambition over alignment. This business was growing. The families we were responsible for. So I made that choice. And then when I look back now, I'm so grateful, because if we did not adjust things and structure things, and we did not raise that new leader who ran things through the pandemic, we would not have been at the right place at the right time to help so many families and see that even the business really take off and do well. And as a bonus, the advocacy side of things for personal finance carried on. I used digital platforms. I got invited so many times online, all many different webinars, right? You can imagine, right? Because everyone was wanting to learn how to handle money through the crisis, right? So all of that became a wonderful bonus. So I think I'm sharing that as an encouragement to whoever's listening here, because even if your question was very simple, was there a time where you had to make a difficult decision between ambition and alignment? Yes. And I'm sure many people here are either facing this or have faced it. I want to encourage you that it's worth it when the alignment and the clarity behind that is obviously in place, right? So when you make the decision, then you can look back, even if in the moment it's painful, as I've shared in my own journey, it becomes worth it, because what you are aligning it for and what you're letting it go for is something that is more worthwhile.
I remember a quote I read many years ago wherein no success outside can compensate for the failure in the home, right?
That's right, yeah.
And in that moment wherein you felt sad because you did not get the TOOYM award, but then your son said, you are the the most amazing man. So they see you.
Mm.
They saw all your sacrifices.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad they did, right? I was like, yes. I'm so glad that they saw it. It became so much more worthwhile.
yes. I'm really learning a lot from this conversation, Edric. And now we're down to the fast and fearless. That's what I call it.
Fast and fearless round.
Yes. What is one small act that a leader can do to make someone feel truly seen?
Mm. Um, so it might not seem like a small act, or it might, depending on who you are, right?
Mhm.
But one small act that a leader can do to make you feel seen is empathy, right?
Mhm.
What does that look like? Um, there was a team member of mine, and I've been sharing this recently in my recent talk. So if you're one of the viewers who've heard me speak about this, so forgive me, but since Shah is asking me, it's going to be fresh. There, in one of the teams I was leading, I remember this one moment where it was a family day outdoors, and I saw one of these team members who was new.
Mhm.
And at that time, because the team had been growing so much, I wasn't interfacing with these new team members anymore. We had an HR team, they were hiring and they were fielding people in place. And I wasn't able to have, frankly, any interaction really with him directly up until that point where I just said, hey, you're looking really frail. Are you okay?
Mhm.
Right? It's like, oh yeah, thanks for telling me. Yeah, thanks for asking me. I'm not feeling too good. I said, why are you here?
Mhm.
You should be resting. He's like, yeah, but this is paraphrasing already right now.
Yes.
I said, well, I really want to be here. It's a big moment. I said, okay, great. And then I think if I recall correctly, I even volunteered to just say, hey, can I pray for you? Because you don't look like you're well. I prayed for you.
Mm.
I share this because you're asking, are there moments where people, are there simple things you can do to help people feel like,
They matter.
they matter, right?
Yeah.
And as I did that for that gentleman, fast forward, we find out weeks and months later that he passed away.
Oh.
So sorry. And hold on.
It's okay. Yeah.
I remember that very emotionally because of all the teams I've led so far. He's the only team member that passed away during my time.
Mm.
And of course, I grieved and I was shocked that he had passed away. I didn't realize how sick he really was already.
Yeah.
But during my birthday, which happened in between that moment and when he passed,
Mhm.
we have a tradition in some of our teams where to appreciate the person during their birthday, you write a small note, right? So
Yes.
they passed this bucket, and when I read his note to me, I was very emotional because he basically said, in a nutshell, thank you for giving me this opportunity. In the short time I've been here as part of the team, I've been so motivated to give my best. It's in a great environment, and I'm grateful to God for this opportunity to serve Him and do things for Him through this opportunity. So thank you for your leadership, Edric. And I looked back and I realized it was one small moment,
Right.
right? One small moment that I really had with him directly, and it made such a difference in his life that was remaining. And so that's what empathy is, right?
Mhm.
We're able to look at people
Yes.
and try and be where they're at,
Mhm.
so that they feel valued in that way.
Yes.
It does, and I realized it doesn't even have to be long, protracted conversations, right?
Right.
It depending on your leadership situation, right? So very practically, right? These small things that you can do so that they feel valued would be so that they feel seen and valued,
Mhm.
is to actually look at their situation and don't just talk shop. That
Mhm.
would be, I guess, my most direct way of answering your question.
Mhm.
When you see a person, can you ask something like that? Hey, how are you? How's your family? Do you even have anything to ask them,
Mhm.
right, about their life? In my case, I'm ashamed that I did not know much about this person, but because he looked frail, that the sincerity of asking and even praying for him, even that brief moment, really mattered to him.
Yes.
So for us, we want to ask that very practical question. That's my tip, right?
Mhm.
Know something beyond the work life of that person. If you don't, you should be ashamed if you're a leader, right? And when you do know these things, where you have the opportunity, depending on how you hustle, right? Find time to ask about them. Simple thing, right? Hey, so I have a team member, for example, who's saying, I have this girlfriend, I'm about to break up with her because I asked him the other day, I'm like, so did you have the conversation? Are you okay? Those small gestures show that I value you.
Yes.
You're not just a drone that is
Right.
designed to work here, but you're a person who's valued beyond what you're doing. And that's why I said earlier, I don't believe in work-life balance. In the teams that I lead, I want to add this little thought that I have also, Sha, and it's not perfect, but it's a thought I have, is I don't think that work and life are different. I think all of life is integrated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're here
It
for
makes
reasons.
sense.
It matters to you as a person, not just as a job to make money, but there's something that's driving you to do it. So that is part of who you are.
Right.
So it's not really professional and personal. It's whole, right? So
Yeah.
so that framing can then allow you to ask those questions. Now, obviously, do it where it's appropriate, depending on the corporate culture and
Yes.
protocols. You don't want to be asking things like, "Oh, my jowa ka na?" I mean, things like that, where it's like, "Teka, I'm married." So be prudent, obviously, but
Yes.
but make sure you know something about that person, and you're able to ask that. And then that's one way that they can feel valued, and that you can show that you truly value them, and they are seen beyond just what they're doing.
That is so powerful. If every leader would pause for 60 seconds to listen to this podcast, what is the message that you would like to tell them?
That's a big one.
Yes.
If a leader pauses for 60 seconds to listen to this podcast, what is
The message that you would like to tell them.
I want to, if you had 60 seconds to listen to this, I will quote, and this might seem cliche already. Mark Twain says, the two most important days of your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. So if you're listening to this podcast, I think part of my encouragement for you is, whether it's our conversations about leadership or money, family, you want to ask the most important question is why. What are you really doing? What is your life for? So that as you articulate that and clarify that, that will help you apply many of the things we talked about in the breadth of this podcast. You will figure out how to choose your 5%. You'll figure out what is the priority in your life. You'll figure out your philosophy when it comes to money. You'll figure out how to handle your marriage, the roles at home, whether you're leading well or not, how to handle your relationships with your children if you have children, right? And then even as you expand this to leadership, wherever you are, knowing the answer to that question will help you do all of those things in a fulfilled way, but in an excellent way as well. So that's what I would give you.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I have two last questions.
Sure.
Is there something you wish more leaders would talk about on leadership, but they don't, but often don't?
Sure. I think integration, right? I think a big part of leadership is not what people will see, but who you really are. And so integration is, on the one hand, let's say you talk about the business side of things and the work you do. What about the home? Is that neglected? Some people just talk about the home and the family, but what about the practical things about, well, how do you make it work? How do you build the teams or do well in your job so that you might be able to? So I think there's a need for holistic conversation when it comes to leadership, that it's not just one facet of you that is a leader. It must be all of you that is leading, right? And if a leader is able to have that conversation and have the integrity, meaning it's whole, you're leading on all fronts consistently, that is a conversation I think that needs to happen more of in the leadership world, because oftentimes it is segmented. I'll talk to you about leadership in this space, but don't ask me about the other stuff. Where leaders can talk about it holistically in an integrated way, I think will be a lot more enriching.
Yes.
And for me, I think you can even say it's a lot more truthful, because true leaders are leading in all spaces, not just in one.
I love that. And one last. So John Maxwell is very much known for his definition of leadership, which is influence.
Yes, nothing more, nothing less, right? That's his line.
Yes. What is your definition of leadership?
I think leadership, after everything that I have been learning, even from Maxwell, it really boils down to people. If we are able to value people and equip people to do what it is that they are designed to do, then we are leading well, because people drive programs forward. And if we value these people genuinely and we're able to do, as I said, equip them well, then we would have done well in leading. That's my view.
World peace. Thank you so much, Edric.
welcome,
Thank you for
Sha.
gracing the show.
Thanks for having me. Super appreciate it. And I hope that this helps as many people as possible.
Yes,
That's why I'm here.
amen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sha.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fearless Possibilities Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I have a small favor to ask. Please like this video and subscribe. It's a simple way to help us reach and inspire more leaders. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Done? Alright, thank you so much. Again, this is Nacino. Stay human and keep unlocking possibilities. See you in our next episode.